is up? It is Rocky Tiger here, and it is Thursday, which means it's time for another texture pack review. Today we are reviewing the DokuCraft texture pack. This is a 32 by 32 texture pack, updated for 1.14. A little bit of history about this pack is that it was actually started by a user named Doku, and around 1.8 version of Minecraft, he stopped updating the pack, and it was taken over by some of its community members, namely one Hickory Dickory. This texture pack is very much a fantasy-themed texture pack, kind of fantasy medieval texture pack, and honestly has some of the neatest changes that I have seen, and would be perfect if you're looking to build a really heavy fantasy-themed server or world, and have a lot more fantastical elements as opposed to the vanilla textures. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Starting off, as always, you have your different wood textures. So you've got your oak, dark oak, spruce, birch, jungle, and acacia. And we'll just start off right here with the oak. As you can tell, the oak door has almost completely changed from what it looks like in the vanilla texture. Now it's this really cool wood, blue wood looking door with a golden frame around it. Definitely not at all what I was expecting, and really interesting that the doors look completely different from the rest of the wood texture. As you can see, the actual logs and the planks and the stripped wood have a completely different look than the door itself, so that's really cool and kind of indicative of what we're probably going to be seeing for the majority of this pack and with this review. The dark oak door, again, dark oak, usually one of my least favorite of all the doors or all the woods in Minecraft. This actually, I think, may be my favorite of the doors in here. Yes, it is even preferred over the spruce door. I just like the simplicity of it with the couple of bands at the bottom and no border around the sides here, and it just looks really, really neat. Not that the spruce door doesn't look cool, but I actually think I'm preferring the color of the dark oak a little bit better as well. This spruce looks like it's a little bit pinker, a little bit redder. Nothing wrong with it, it's just, you know, the regular vanilla spruce door is perfect, and you can't improve on it, but at least they try. They didn't just leave it completely empty. The birch door, really interesting design choice for it. Obviously it looks very similar to the oak door. Still has these, like, it looks like it's probably supposed to be glass, like window going all up and down. Almost kind of looks like a sword, you know. There's your pommel and your hilt and it goes up with the blade up there. Interesting design choice. Probably wouldn't use that too terribly often. Also, it has horizontal slats as opposed to the vertical slats that the regular oak door does. Interesting. Definitely, though, could see how these two could be used for just coordination. And that's one thing that I am noticing so far in this texture pack, is that it is a very well thought out, very well coordinated texture pack. Your jungle, also very different sort of door. This would be really cool in some builds where you're trying to make everything look really overgrown and almost like a ruined look to it, so that's a really neat addition there. Personally, I think if I was going to go for a ruined look and really have a ruined look, it'd be really cool to see that door look more like, say, the oak door but falling apart. Nothing wrong with it. I think it's a really neat texture. And then for some reason the acacia looks the most like its vanilla counterpart, and I've just never been a fan of these giant holes through the textures itself. It's just kind of bleh to me, but it does look neat. It's still a pretty neat texture. Not sure where I would use that. The signs all look pretty standard, with just the difference being the border around the side or around the edges here, as well as the post. One thing I am noticing here with the acacia as well is just the level of saturation. That's really, really red. And then you have the stripped log, which is really, really orange. Understandable, I guess. It's okay. I personally think that I'd rather see a little bit more consistency in the coloration. That just kind of seems a little bit out of place, the stripped log does. You've got your different trapdoors, so your regular oak, your dark oak, your spruce, which I actually really like that. I think that's really cool, a little grab handle. Your birch, which looks almost... No, it is different enough that you can tell the difference between the oak and the birch trapdoor. Still, could work really well in conjunction with each other, which is something that you might not be able to do in vanilla textures. The jungle looks really cool, really overgrown. That would be really fun to use as a trap. It's an actual trap door. And then the acacia, I think, would work really well as like a storm grate if you were going to go for a sewer type of look to it. Or maybe even as like a planter or something. There's some cool possibilities that I'm seeing here. Next up, we have your different fences. So again, your oak, dark oak, spruce, birch, jungle, and your acacia. They all look completely identical to each other with just different colors. Nothing too exciting to see here. Next, you've got your standard building blocks. So you have your cobblestone, your regular stone, and your smooth stone. Interesting design choice for the smooth stone to make it a quadrant style block. Not sure if I like that yet or not. We'll reserve judgment until we see some of the other basic building blocks. You also have your granite, your diorite, and your andesite. Retextured versions. It looks like no, that's they are slightly different actually. I can see the upper left corner here does look different from each other. Diorite and the andesite. Yep, they're all. It's hard to tell. The diorite and the granite are different, but the differences are more negligible. So they are all unique. And then also interesting that the granite, or the smooth polished granite, is a solid block, whereas the polished versions of the diorite and the andesite look more like bricks. Not sure. I'd like to see a little bit more consistency. And looking at the acacia wood and the granite at the very least, and also looking at the red sandstone, this makes these colorations on the acacia less, I'd say, obnoxious, because at least there's consistency throughout some of the rest of the texture pack. That means that you would be able to use them very well as complementary colors. And then the fact that the smooth stone does match up with the regular sand and the sandstone, and the fact that you've got your smooth sandstone up there, color-wise, we'll put it right next to each other. It's a little bit of a, I'd say it's a little bit of a creamier color, but I think that that just adds some more variety in your overall build. So this is definitely less obnoxious when you look at it in comparison with some of the other blocks. Don't know if it would work in every build though. If you're converting a world to this texture pack, or if you're deciding, hey, I've got this world I've already created and now I want to use this texture pack with it, you might run into a couple of problems. But for creativity and brand new builds, I can see some really cool possibilities with just the different overall skin or design on these different blocks. You have your sand, you have your sandstone, you have your chiseled sandstone, your cut sandstone, and then your smooth sandstones. I love to see the difference in the red sandstone of the chiseled. Which one is this? The chiseled variety between the two, instead of just using the exact same texture. So that is nice to see. Looks like you've got a little Aztec bird symbol on there, although would it really be Aztec, or is that supposed to be more Egyptian themed? I'm not entirely certain. You have your stone bricks, mossy stone bricks, cracked stone bricks, and your chiseled stone bricks. Let's see. One thing I like to check and see. Let's just look at the colors here. And the color is consistent between the brick wall and the mossy stone brick. So that's a nice thing to notice, attention to detail. I've seen a couple other texture packs where this will be a completely different color than this one will, and that's just like, come on. You know, if you're making a brand new texture pack, you should at least pay a little bit more attention to the detail on that side of things. Looking at the walls though, some of the cleanest looking textures that I've seen. Let's go ahead and see what happens with this 1.14 feature if we stack the wall. And it still carries on the same, I don't know, I'd call it an issue. I'd take an issue with this in the vanilla textures as well, and also just looking at the weird way that this is connecting. So okay, so when you stack one on top, so the top one stays smooth, the one on the bottom, now you've got it reverting to this other texture. I'd really like to see this just be a solid wall. Like, I don't want to be able to see daylight through the wall itself. I think that's something that every single texture pack, including the vanilla texture pack, should make a change to do that, because if you're going to make walls stackable to stack them on top of each other, which I don't think you could do before 1.14, why on earth are you letting us see daylight between the two? It's just... ugh. Next up, we've got some more earthy type of blocks. You have your grass block and your path block. You've got your dirt and your coarse dirt. I love to see the fact that the coarse dirt has a different texture than the regular dirt. A lot of times I'll see these two blocks in texture packs be exactly identical to each other, which really takes away from some of your building possibilities. You have your podzol, which looks like leaves falling on the ground, and you can really tell that it looks like leaves falling on the ground. A really awesome block right there. And then your gravel, which looks like a more gravelly and particulated block than your coarse dirt. So that's a nice variation of going from dirt to coarse dirt to gravel. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Next, we have some of your ores. So you've got your coal, iron, gold, diamond, lapis, ruby, and your emerald, and then their corresponding blocks on the top. Not a huge fan so far. Let's see, time set. There. I just want a little bit of a different lighting right here, and since daylight cycle is off, we're never gonna get it. Not a fan of the iron block. It looks more like granite to me than iron, and the gold border around the edge just is a little bit off to me. In terms of a building block, though, I could see where it's more useful than like a regular iron block that you would see in the vanilla texture pack. So it does add some more building variety to the game, but it's just not my favorite that I've seen. Also, a continued theme that I see in a lot of texture packs is having the iron ore a different color than the iron block, which I know makes sense because it's refined versus not refined, or sorry, refined versus not refined, but I'd really like to see a little bit more ruddy color and rusty color in that. The gold block looks like gold bricks, which could be really cool for certain types of builds. That's not bad. Diamond block, you're not really going to use that in a whole lot of building in survival mode, so not bad. Your lapis, which looks like small lapis bricks. I could see that being a really neat block to use if you're going to, say, build a pool, and have it be like the lining on a pool or different decoration on stuff. This is more of a medievally fantasy sort of texture pack though, so I'm not really sure where that would fit in as well. The ruby block looks kind of like a chest and would look really cool. A lot of these would look really cool actually in like a treasure vault. Interesting design choice for that, and it's something, there's not a whole lot of consistency between the two. Sometimes you'll see the different ore blocks, or their what would you even call this? Because it's not ore, the ingots, whatever, the blocks of these items. Sometimes you'll see them look very, very similar, and there's not a whole lot of consistency here, which does add a lot of variety for what you can do with them. And none of them feel out of place, except for maybe the lapis. Lapis feels maybe a little bit out of place, but none of the rest of them really feel that out of place with this texture pack so far. So still could do some really fun stuff with that. Next, we've got some random blocks. So you've got your hay, your carved pumpkin, and your regular pumpkin. That is a very sad, sad looking pumpkin. You've got your iron bars. To be honest, these are probably, and at least looking at them right here in this creative world, this is one of my least favorite versions of iron bars. Actually, this is my least favorite version of iron bars that I've ever seen. Not a fan. The nether bricks. So you have your nether rack, your regular nether brick, your red nether brick, your nether brick fence, the nether brick wall and its red counterpart. You've got your nether quartz ore, your soul sand, and your magma block, followed by your different types of quartz and their variations. The nether rack looks really kind of organic and honestly kind of gross looking, but that's not a bad thing, and it only seems to have one block for the nether rack. I've seen some texture packs where they have like randomized different blocks for that. This looks pretty much the same. Looking at that, it honestly kind of makes me think of a brain. I'm not sure if that's what he's going for or not, but it certainly is kind of creepy. The red coloration fits in with the texture pack. It's a little bit too... it's not too saturated. It's something about it. I would change the color, but I'm not really sure how to articulate how I would want the color to be a little bit different. The soul sand looks kind of viney, and I can still see the same sort of design element, so nothing wrong there. And I like this magma block. I think that the darker color could work pretty well in the same sort of build style that you would have using this texture pack. Coming around to the side and taking a look at the quartz, you can see one of my favorite features to see in a texture pack, and that is this changing block, what would you call it, skin, changing texture as you build it up. So instead of just having a regular quartz pillar, which, well, it looks like the middle one right there, so it's just sitting there, but as soon as you add something to it, it changes, and so you get the top part of the pillar and the bottom part of the pillar, and you add another one on there, and now you have the middle pillar section back there again. This is your smooth quartz, so it has no border around it, which is awesome. That means that you could use the block of quartz to border that up whenever you are ready to finish your massive wall structure. That just scared me. Holy cow, I didn't expect to see him just pop up there. Next we have your end blocks. So you have your regular end stone, you have your end stone brick, your end stone wall, and then your purpur blocks. And it looks like they basically are sharing a palette choice with the quartz. So you could almost look at these as a continuation of the quartz. The end stone by itself, maybe not the most incorporative into that sort of build, but the end stone bricks definitely could be used in those. And I really am liking just looking at the contrast here between the purpur and the quartz, as well as the purpur and the rest of the end stone. It's definitely a less vibrant color than you would see in the vanilla textures, although the actual texture itself doesn't look too different than what you'd see in the vanilla. The coloration, I think, is a lot more versatile. I think you could use these in a lot more builds than you would use purpur in otherwise. Next you have some of your aquatic blocks, and as you can tell, there is a continuing coloration palette theme throughout this texture pack. These blocks, if you know in the vanilla textures, are very, very turquoise. You have prismarine, all your different prismarine blocks. So you have regular prismarine, prismarine bricks, dark prismarine, and your prismarine wall. And they have been basically completely stripped. It does look weathered, but they've been completely stripped of their standard colors and become much more usable. And I could easily see this dark prismarine being used as a decorative piece in any sort of build that uses quartz or the end stone, or even in conjunction with some of those sand, andesite, diorite, and regular stone bricks. Next up, we have your different types of wools. And yes, the white does have texture on it. It's not just a white block. It gets a little bit washed out with the sun shining right on it. I like these ones better than some other texture packs. They at least look like they aren't just an afterthought. The colors over here may still be a little bit more on the pastel side for my choice, but the colors on this side definitely are a little bit more muted, at least until you get to the red. Maybe I'd make the red maybe a little bit darker and reddier, but seeing some of the kind of weathering pattern, you can definitely tell it's supposed to be a wool block, and I think it still fits in with the sort of fantasy theme that we see carried through this texture pack. The terracotta, on the other hand, is leaving something to be desired. Those look like way too pastel for me, although the consistency in the glazed terracotta design, I'm not a huge fan of the way that these look in this texture pack. I'd like the whole terracotta family of blocks could maybe be toned down a bit if I was the one designing it. Actually, looking at it, especially comparing it to the glass blocks here, I'd try and match the glass blocks color a little bit more. I am liking the glass though. It's a really clean look for glass. Looking at these glass blocks as well, with the framework around them, that's a really neat way of doing it. Interesting to see. Let's take a look at this. Let's see what happens if I build up a 4x4. So you can see the stained glass has a different texture than the regular clear glass panes do. So you don't get this framework on stained glass that you get with the regular clear glass panes. Coming up next are all of your different light source blocks. So you have your jack-o'-lantern, still sad even if he's got a bright shiny light face. You have your campfire, this rabbit who's been stuck in this end rod for a while. I don't know why. He keeps hopping back over to it. The end rod though. The redstone lamp toggled on and off, and the block of glowstone. Nice to see the difference here. A lot of times I see these texture packs use these as an afterthought, and they'll just use the same texture for each block. Your regular torch, your lantern, which I love the lantern. As always, lantern is my favorite block addition from 1.14, and that's a pretty cool looking one. I love that gold lantern look. And then you have your sea lantern. So looking at the different types of light blocks, I can see a same sort of consistent, almost mystical blue magic sort of look to them all. Just an observation, and not a bad one. I think that lends itself very well to the overall feel of the texture pack. You have your different types of beds, a white bed and a blue bed. I like putting two of them next to each other because some texture packs do actually use completely unique textures for the different beds. This one does not, but you can see it does look kind of like it's got a quilt over the top of it. You have your chest, your regular crafting table, your furnace, your jukebox, your enchanting table. You've got your ender chest, your anvil, which I do like seeing the consistency and color of the iron between this iron and the iron block, so that's a good thing. You have your bookshelf, your note block, your shulker box, which looks like you could actually use that in, not that you probably would because shulkers are rare, but you could use that as an actual building block. And finally you have your beacon. The next row is all of your utility blocks that have been added for 1.14. So you have your composter, your lectern, your scaffolding, your bell, your stone cutter, your armorer's workbench, your grindstone, which looks quite a bit different than the vanilla texture pack. That almost looks like a wheel. It is a wheel, I guess, technically. You have your Fletcher's table, your cartographer's table, and that is one of the coolest looking things that I think I've ever seen in Minecraft. That is a 3D texture as well. Obviously, you know, looking at it, it's not flat. This is not really a 3D texture. It's got different sides, but looking at the different sides from different angles, it looks the same, just warped. This is actually completely 3D texture. That is really, really cool. It's just a globe stuck in the table. You have your blasting furnace and your smoker, you have the barrel, and finally you have your loom. The next row is a lot of your equipment. So you have your leather armor, your chainmail, your iron armor, your diamond armor, and your gold armor. Let's take a look at these from behind as well. Looks like the iron armor, looks like you've got a little backpack on there. You have your turtle helmet and your elytra, which looks like kind of a robe slash cape. What would you call this? A cloak? It's a cloak. Interesting. Next we've got all of your different wood tools. Look like they've just been lashed together. Your iron tools. That would be your iron hoe. Interesting. You have your gold tools. And finally your diamond tools. And they don't look too different from each other. Looking at it, the color is a little bit different on the gold ones, but Very little difference between, other than color, between the gold tools and the diamond tools. Your bow, your arrow, your crossbow, and your trident. This trident looks really cool, at least on that picture, and it's a little bit disappointing that that's the actual item icon is way more detailed than the actual trident itself. Your shield, fishing rod, shears, clock, and compass, enchanted book, name tag, and your lead. Next you've got your horses. This horse has, I believe, just iron armor, although that's kind of surprising. That honestly looks a little bit more like it would be diamond armor to me, but it's not. That is in fact the iron horse armor. And the last row of blocks that we have to look at are all of your redstone components. So you have your daylight sensor, your iron trapdoor, and your iron door, again continuing that same color theme with the iron blocks, nice to see. Your observer, your dropper, and your dispenser. I don't know where I got this mossy cobblestone wall from, or mossy stone brick wall. You have your note block again. You have your two different types of pistons, so you have your sticky piston and your regular piston, your redstone comparator, your redstone repeater, and your hopper, which looks like it's got a nice little gold ring at the top. Interesting. Switch and redstone dust. And finally your redstone torch. You have your regular rail and your powered rail, and then this is what your minecart looks like. And now it's time for the Hall of Hostile Mobs to see if these look different, and they do. So you've got your zombie. Hello, Roger. You look a little frightening. You have your drowned, who looks like an undead pirate. That is awesome. You have the husk, which looks like a mummy. If he would turn around and look at me, it's a zombie mummy. You have your regular skeleton. Your stray, which looks like a White Walker, kind of, to me. It's the Night King. Your wither skeleton. Very, very frightening. Got your zombie pigman. Your zombie villager. And your evoker. That is one evil looking dude. Your spider. Looks like it's got a little bit hairy legs thing going on there. You have your pillager. Your slime, which has turned blue and kind of icy looking to me, and it looks like there's... Yes, that looks like there is a bone that has been absorbed into that slime. Your Vindicator. The Witch. That is, like, combination. She looks kind of piggish, but at the same time, looks like she's got little glasses. That's disturbing. Your Blaze. It's got kind of a skull-looking like face. Your Creeper. Ah, there he is. That's disturbing. Your Magma Cube. And your Phantom, who is hovering too high for us to see. And the last bit before we head over to the Beyond Vanilla server to check out some builds at our spawn island are our non-hostile mobs. So you have your bat, looks totally different from vanilla. Your parrots, which looks like they look like they all have mohawks. The cats. Their eyes look a little bit more derpy to me. The chicken. Different, but not too different. The donkey, I'm not seeing too much of a difference in. The fox, which looks way less derpy than it does in the vanilla texture. Your llamas. Your mushroom and your cow. The mule, again, not too different, if any at all. You have your ocelots. The panda. The pigs. You have your sheep. The rabbit. And the turtle. And your wolf/dogs. Next up, we're going to take a look at the dolphins and all of their other aquatic mobs. Dolphins look a little bit less cartoony. The salmon? Salmon. Which do look more realistic to me. The pufferfish. I think they're different, but if they are, they're not too different. And how often do you really look at pufferfish that closely? You have your cod. And, oh, that's right, the squid always like to jump out and die. So, you know, we're going to summon one out here so we can see what it really looks like. Interesting. Take a look at these last three things. So we've got your villagers, which everything seems to have a kind of pig, orcish looking face to it. Interesting choice. Your Ravager, which now looks very gilded and very, very angry. And your Skeleton Horse. And that is all of the blocks and mobs that we're going to look at over here in our testing world. Next thing to do is to hop over onto the Beyond Vanilla server, and we're going to take a quick jaunt around our spawn town so you can see what some of these blocks look like in actual builds. And once again, we are now over here on the Beyond Vanilla server, and I think I'm looking pretty fancy. Look at this. Look at that. Let's take a look at those back. Look at those wings. It's a cloak. It's nice. I like it. Everything's looking pretty different in here. This particular build is my spawn house build, and someone pillared up to the top of it, it looks like. Okay. And normally it's a concrete build, and it looks like concrete, and I realize I don't actually show concrete in the testing world, but concrete has now become bricks, and I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest. It makes it really hard to do any sort of modern style. Now, I know that this particular texture pack is a medieval fantasy style, so concrete may not fit in with that necessarily. This is what I was talking about earlier. When you're trying to convert a world to using a different texture pack as opposed to building in that texture pack, you can end up getting really different results than what you may have been expecting. For example, the bank building here. This is regular quartz block right here, I think. Smooth stone, sorry, that's smooth stone. Yep, so that doesn't really work in this build. The rest of it looks pretty nice, but the sort of consistency of the build is lacking because of this sort of build style. And I wouldn't call this a really modern build to begin with. I'd say, if anything, it's kind of a Greco sort of style. It was definitely inspired by a lot of Greek... I'm hitting a cactus. And so that sort of build style, while it still could be possible to achieve in this texture pack, you'd have to start the build using this texture pack, not build it and then decide, hey, I want to use this. I wouldn't call this ruined, but I would say that it's not nearly as nice looking as it is in the vanilla texture pack. A build that is never ever ruined, Mallow's Bookstore here at Spawn. Still one of my favorite houses that I've seen. The CN Tower loses a lot from this texture pack, and again, that's a more modern style build. And it's not a slight against the texture pack, it's just really illustrating that this texture pack and modern builds do not really go well together unless you are actually starting that build in this texture pack, and even then, I think you'd have a little bit of an issue trying to complete it. Looking at Scar's glass shop here, I doubt that he would have done the build or planned it out the same way if he knew the way that it was going to look using this particular pack. It looks very, very pink. A lot of the color choices that he used in the vanilla texture pack do not work well together in this texture pack. My iron shop has been ruined. This is cyan terracotta. And in the vanilla texture pack, it is a very dark gray with just a hint of blue. In this texture pack, it is very, very vibrant. And that just doesn't work at all. That just doesn't work at all. The banners do look pretty interesting with the textures that have been added to them. Those are fine, but the coloration here, that doesn't look like an anvil. It looks bad. The end shop looks interesting. The Shulker's Demise. This still looks pretty cool, although the Shulker heads look a little bit out of place. I don't think that those are, or I don't think those have been changed at all, so they look a little bit too vibrant, but it does give a nice little illustration of just how different the colors are between the vanilla textures and this particular one. The Icky Sticky Stall. This is slime that I'm bouncing on right now. This is a cobweb and slime ball shop. That looks really cool in this texture pack. Not gonna lie, that's probably one of my favorite changes that I've seen. It kind of looks cold though. It looks kind of icy. Really, really neat. You've got Will 64 XD's Halloween Spookporium, which still looks spooktacular in this texture pack. Phantom Maple's Grand's Craft Shop. Still looks nice and homey. Not quite as homey as it looks in the vanilla textures, but nothing wrong with it. The paintings have changed, I'm also noticing. I believe in our vanilla texture pack, this particular painting is swords, and this particular painting is the creeper painting. I actually like how my cactus shop looks, and I think that the cactus shop is just regular green terracotta. It's been cactuared from Final Fantasy, or bumboed if you watch the Hermitcraft server. Oh man, someone bought me out of a whole lot of sand. I know what I'm doing on the next episode of Beyond Vanilla. But I think that actually looks pretty cool. That's not a negative or a detractor at all. I think that looks pretty fancy. I like the coloration on how that particular one turned out. You have Sheep's Studio here. So he's got his movie studio, or TV studio, I think is what it technically is. And let's take a look, because he has his face on the other side here. So let's see what Sheep's face looks like. Can we still tell that it's sheep? Yes. Yes, we can. Very obviously. So there you have it. That is the DokuCraft texture pack. This particular one is the DokuCraft High texture pack, I believe. They actually have two other variations. They have one that's called the light texture pack, and they have one that's called the dark texture pack, so you can get a different feel for the different textures. This is just one version of those packs. Overall, I really like this pack. I think that for building a very, very lore-heavy fantasy sort of world, it works really, really well. As you can see, I'm standing on top of the CN Tower here, and for builds like this, a very, very modern-looking build, this texture pack may not be the one that you would want to use. For my house down there at the beach, it doesn't really work that well. For Sheep's Bank, which is a kind of a Greco-Grecian sort of feel and style of building, it doesn't really work that well. But for a lot of very, very medieval looking builds and for a medieval looking world, this texture pack is absolutely perfect. It just doesn't work for us here on the Beyond Vanilla server, so you probably won't see me ever switching over and using it. But overall, it's got one of the highest levels of detail and definitely one of the longest histories of any texture pack that I have ever seen at all. And definitely, I can tell where this would be awesome if I was going to do a single-player survival world and wanted to build a massive fantasy realm. This is probably a texture pack that I would look really, really seriously at using, and so I don't know if I can recommend it enough. It's really neat. Definitely check out DokuCraft's website. It's in the description, and check out the different texture packs for yourselves. Again, I'm also using shaders, so using a combination of Optifine and the Replay mod, and the shaders that I'm using are a lighter version of the Chopakic shaders, which you can also find online for free. They're awesome, but Thank you guys for watching. If you like this review, I put out new reviews of different texture packs every Thursday. Go ahead, leave a comment if you really liked it and wanted me to go over something or want me to change something up or review different parts of different texture packs. If you really liked the video, you can go ahead and just give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll love you forever, or at least until I forget. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. And also check out my Beyond Vanilla Survival Multiplayer series. Do it. You know you want to. Just do it. Do it.